All right. Good evening, everyone, and again, welcome to OTF Connects with Jim Carlton, looking at engaging students in social media to explore global and social justice issues. A long title for a very engaging topic. It's going to be a lot of fun here tonight. So welcome on behalf of OTF. I know that one of the great things that OTF always talks about is how we do bring people from all over the province together. And you can see on this map we've got some people from sort of the southern end of the province, but in the chat we've also got people from New Liskeard a bit further up, and up near the Ottawa region. We've got people from all over the province, so that's just awesome, especially this time of year now that it's starting to get nice and the long weekend is coming. We do appreciate you taking some time and spending that with us here this evening. So what I'm going to do and say without anything further is I'm going to pass it to Jim, and his colleague Mally is not able to be here tonight, but maybe Jim can jump in and tell us about that. But otherwise, Jim, my friend, it is over to you, and anything you need, you just ask me, and I will help you as best I can.
That's awesome. Thanks a lot, Colin. And so my name's Jim Carlton, and I'm a teacher with the Simcoe County District School Board, and I'll also be playing the role of Mally Bickley this evening, because Mally is off to see Donny Osmond. And she's just texting me now, just going, are you busy? Are you busy? Are you busy? Funny girl. Anyways, so she's got her thing. She loves what she's doing. I'm happy for her. But she did help to put the presentation together, and you're going to see as we go through this, we're going to be just touching on a few different organizations that Mally's very actively a part of. And so after we're done, if you want to connect with either Mally or myself, we'll help you to get started and go further. So I'm just going to move ahead here. So this is just a quick little, this was Jennifer Corriero, who is part of TakingITGlobal, which we'll be talking about quite a bit this evening. And so she actually had, this was a quote that she had that was put on a Starbucks coffee cup. And to me, it sort of encapsulates everything that we're going to be talking about tonight. And TakingITGlobal, like I said, something else that we'll be talking about, but I forgot to mention that Mally and I, and Mally just retired herself, but we're also the country coordinators for IRN Canada, and IRN is the International Education and Resource Network, which is a network that connects teachers and educators from around the world on a variety of different projects that make a difference in the world. So it fits perfectly with what we're doing tonight. And it's something that we're obviously very passionate about. So I think we all know that our students are just naturally curious, and they naturally have a sense of fairness about the world. They want to make a difference. And I think our role as educators is just to help foster environments and that will allow them to realize that. So how are we going to do that? And that's sort of what we're going to be talking about for the most part tonight. How are we going to do it? How are we going to help and create, how are we going to create and foster climates in our classrooms where students are involved in real and meaningful ways with issues that they're passionate about in the world? So what we're going to do right now, because I think, is just have you, using the whiteboard tools, just list a few of the social justice issues or issues that you're passionate about in the world, because what we've definitely found, Mally and myself and other people that we've worked with, is if you're passionate about it, that's going to definitely translate into what you're, it's going to carry over and translate into your classroom. It's going to be really obvious. So if you just want to just grab the type tool and just list any issues at all that you're passionate about, we'll give people just a couple of minutes to do that. So we can see child poverty.
And we've also got people adding into the chat as well, especially if you're on a tablet, sure. You can't use that. So just so you know, Jim, it'll be showing up in both places, so that's cool.
Perfect, yeah, here you can see Karen put in equity over there, environmental issues, child poverty, biodiversity, habitat loss, climate change. And I think so far these are all things that we're going to be touching on a little bit tonight, at the very least leading you towards organizations that are going to be able to help you to dig deeper into these things. And just as you're writing those out, I just want to make sure, like, we're going to be looking at maybe 3 organizations this evening: TakingITGlobal, IRN, and the Center for Global Learning. touching on just a couple of other ones, but really there is no, there's just a million ways that you can do this. All right, so thanks for sharing some of the things that you're passionate about. And now next we're just going to look at the Millennium Development Goals, they were formerly known as the Millennium Development Goals, and now known as the Sustainable Development Goals. As of the fall of 2015, the United Nations revised what were formerly known as the Millennium Development Goals to set a list of targets for sustainable development by the year 2030. So if you want, if Colin's already put the link over into the chat box, we'll give people just a couple of minutes to look through the Sustainable Development Goals, and you can see some of the targets that are being set by the United Nations. And then what we're going to do is look at what are some of the ways that we collectively, as educators and our students together, along with different organizations, can work together to help realize some of these goals. So let's take just a couple of minutes right now to look at those goals, and we'll be right back. If you have any trouble getting there, just let us know. And I think you'll be able to see, even as you look at those Sustainable Development Goals, a lot of what people were putting into the list of things that they're passionate about will fit somewhere within the Sustainable Development Goals. So you can see as you click on each goal, you can see the targets that they set for 2030. And you can see, for the most part, they're definitely ambitious, which to me lets us know that it's something that we're all collectively going to have to work at together. Okay, so that's, and afterwards, everybody's going to get all the links that we're getting throughout the session will be emailed out to everyone, so you don't have to keep track of all this. They'll be all emailed out to you afterwards so that you can look at all these things in more depth later on. And this next slide is the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development. And the reason I put that one in is for a couple of reasons. One, it just shows that there are a number of global and economic organizations that are advocating for a change in our curriculum. They want the curriculum to be more alive. They want us to engage students in the world in real and meaningful ways. And you can see in those first two quadrants where we're investigating the world and recognizing our perspectives, those are things that I think in a traditional sort of classroom that we've always been doing. And then when you get down to the blue area in the third quadrant where we have communicating our ideas, again, something that we traditionally do, but where it changes, I find, in that quadrant is now we're looking at communicating our ideas effectively to a variety of different diverse audiences. So your students aren't just communicating to you so that they can get a mark. Ideally, you want to set up these projects in a way where they're connected to real audiences to make real change, and that brings us over to the fourth quadrant where the students are actively involved in taking action. And then just quickly, probably most of us by now have heard of Michael Fullen's 6 C's, and if you haven't, it'll be something you'll be hearing more and more about. So Michael Fullen, his passion right now is what he calls new pedagogies for deep learning. So looking at these 6 C's that he believes are what we used to sort of think of as being soft skills that we would hope that students would sort of pick up as we go through the curriculum, are now things that I think that educators are starting to believe these are the skills that our students are going to need to survive in a 21st century economic and global environment that they're growing up in. That we need to develop their character, their citizenship. They have to be able to communicate effectively, collaborate with others, critical thinking, creativity, imagination. That if we can instill this in our students, they're going to be successful in the world. And it's no coincidence that these are the skills that employers are looking for these days. They aren't looking for who's got the highest test scores. If anybody's seen that movie, what's it called? Most Likely to Succeed. If anybody's seen that, our whole entire board watched that in our last PA day, and it was awesome. And you can see when they're interviewing people from Google and places like that, they're like, yeah, we're not so much even interested in who graduated where at what level. They're looking for these types of skills. And I think you'll see as we go through looking at some of these projects, these skills get naturally, it's called Most Likely to Succeed. And I don't think it's not available for, what would you call it, private viewing yet. Right now it's just, I think school boards and other organizations can order it, I think with the idea that they want groups of people watching it so that they can discuss it, that sort of thing. And I'm sure later on down the road it'll be made available for sort of individual watching. Great movie though. I thought it was awesome. Anyways, so how are we going to bring this about? So how are we going to involve our students in these types of things? I think number one, in order to make it happen, we're going to have to make sure, especially we're going to have to make sure that we are integrated across subject areas. I think that if we're just teaching the curriculum itself and just going through all those lists of expectations, we'll never be able to do this because you'll just run out of time. But I think you'll see that in some of the projects we're looking at, as you start to integrate and bring different curriculum expectations together, for me, I personally like to find something that I'm passionate about and my students are passionate about, and then I can look at that and go, you know what, we're going to be able to cover a whole whack of curriculum expectations, and we move on from there. So like I said, we're going to sort of look at 3 different organizations tonight, and we're just going to be briefly touching upon them so that you can see what they're all about. And then afterwards, once we're finished here tonight, you might be thinking, okay, that was a lot of information. I'm not sure where to start. That's when you can contact Mally or myself, and we'll lead you in the right direction. So like I was saying, IRON is the International Education and Resource Network. And to me, I came across this network, I don't know, maybe 15 years ago or something. And I thought, to me, it was like the best kept secret in education that I thought shouldn't have been a secret. Because since 1980-something, I think, they've been using technology to connect educators and students all across the world, and just a whole bunch of different projects, all of them that make a difference in the world. And sort of their tagline is learn with the world rather than just learning about the world. So we're going to kind of look at just a couple of the projects here tonight, and then show you how you can find more on your own. And one of the projects that we're going to just talk about briefly that fits in with the theme of tonight's session is the Our Rivers, Our Worlds project. And within all with all IRON projects, the idea is that you communicate, collaborate, create together, and share what you're doing with the world. So like I was saying, the Our Rivers, Our Worlds project is a great project where students all around the world are collaborating and doing different water analysis on the water that's in their local communities, looking at how water affects their communities. And if anybody's traveled very much, they certainly know that, here we take water for granted. That's not the same in most of the world, actually. And what I like about these projects is that the inquiry, you can do this project 5 years in a row, and it will always go off in a different direction. So some years we've had students in this project, and they will focus on agricultural practices and how that affects water, or industrial pollution, or water scarcity, or like I said, the exact nature of the project will always differ. But what's going to remain the same is the process that they go through, where they're going to investigate the issue, they're going to develop their perspective, they're going to communicate and take action. And what's nice within IRON is I know some boards are still pretty sticky about students sharing, and so within IRON there is there are forums that are password protected, not open to the public, and then it just depends on the group of students that are working in there. If they want, if your board and your classroom is open to publishing outside of that space, then that's great. If you're not, and you're working with students in other areas of the world that aren't, then this gives you that safe sort of home base that you can work out of. And so that's just one project that's sort of more of a intermediate, secondary type project. But there are projects that work great even with primary kids. So, for example, this is my class this year, SK class, and we did a Talking Peace Kites project where students all over the world on the equinox in March each year create kites and fly kites all over the world to show their solidarity with one another, and you often end up like we did this year, where you have students who are in war-torn regions or regions of the world that are actually in conflict with each other, and they're all flying their kites together on the same day. There's time for students to communicate, collaborate, and share beforehand, afterwards. So it's a great project that takes very little time, nice and simple, and just one example of how you can do this, how you can start this kind of work as early as kindergarten. And then the next project we'll look at quickly would be another great project. It's called Machinto, and it's basically like a global literature circle where students from around the world collectively study two books together, My Hiroshima and Machinto. Machinto is the book on the right. And Machinto is like this beautifully illustrated story that was written in Japan, and it's of a little girl who's affected by radiation after they dropped the atomic bomb in Hiroshima. And throughout the book, it's a picture book, and she's crying out, Machinto, 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 which in Japanese means a little more. So that was symbolic for a little more peace, a little more life, a little more love. And ultimately, at the end of the story, she dies, but she transforms into a peace dove, and she's symbolizing hope for all the little, as Yoko in Japan calls it, all the little Machinto birds who are still suffering in war-torn regions today. So when you become involved in this project, Yoko will send you the books, and then you join the forums, and like I said, it becomes sort of like this global literature circle, which again takes on all sorts of different forms. You never know from year to year which way it's going to go. So some years, other people have gone, wow, this reminds them of Sadako and 1,000 Paper Cranes. So there was one year where Mali students made paper cranes. They sent them over to Japan, and then they see a few days later or a week later the student getting pictures back of the students in Japan as they're opening up their peace cranes, and with the glee and excitement in their eyes as they open them up. And then 3 days later, we get pictures back of the same students with reverence in their eyes as they're placing the paper cranes that our students have created here at the Hiroshima War Memorial on the same day that would be the equivalent of our Remembrance Day here. So really powerful for our students when they got involved in it. And then another year, a few years ago actually, when we did this project, one of the students in our class, in Mali's class, said, well, why don't we get all the students that we're collaborating with, why don't we just get them to send us a simple picture of how they would imagine peace? And so that's the type of activity that probably a lot of us have done in our classrooms, where students would maybe create a picture of how they would imagine peace, and together you might make a class big book with it. Maybe it will go to your classroom library. But in this case, now because you've got this built-in global audience to start with, the students all created the pictures of how they would imagine peace. And on the cover here, you can just sort of see that was this great image that students in Taiwan drew. They sent them to Mali's classroom, and then her students just put together a simple little video that became this beautiful little video that I'll tell you a little bit more about it afterwards. We're just going to watch maybe a minute and a half of it now, so you get the idea of it, and if you want to afterwards, you can check out the rest. But I think you'll get the idea of what the students put together after just a minute or so.
Yeah, okay, so I'm just getting the video ready here. What we generally do, and I'm not, what's going on here? Oh, it's clicking it over here on me. Hold on. Oh, why is it doing this to me? I'm going to do two things. I'm going to put the link into the chat box, and if that works for you, you can do that. And I'm trying to put the link. Why will that not let me? I'm sorry, just give me a second. It doesn't seem to want to let me click in that box. It does this once in a while, and I don't know why. Shoot. For some reason, well, there should be a video appearing on your screen right now, but it does not want to allow me to type in there, and I don't know why. Okay, well, I apologize for that. So here's what I'm going to ask. I put the video in the chat. Why don't we just click on that video in the chat? And like Jim said, you watch about a minute and a half of it. It's about a 3 or 4 minute video, I think, but watch about a minute and a half of it. And when you're done, you know, a little bit of it, then you can just stop it and then pop back in and give us a green check mark when you're able to get back in, just so we know what you've done. And I'll try and get this web video thing working for next time. I don't know. All right, I'll stop talking. Please watch the video using the link in the chat.
Thanks, Colin. So we've definitely all been there when things don't work, but it's always great when you got the plan B thing working for you, so that's good. And thank you, Maria. I love that video too, and it's so simple. That was I think it was a grade 5 class that Mally had that year when they put that one together. And then the cool thing is, you know, rather than now they've got this great work, and rather than just sort of keeping it within their own classroom, they put it on all sorts of different spaces. They put it into the Taking It Global gallery, which we'll be looking at in a little bit. They published it on the My Hero website, which is, again, you can find within Iron. And when they published it in the Iron My Hero website, My Hero actually has a film festival each year. They entered it in that, and then they won the Ron Kovac. I don't know if you remember years ago, Ron Kovac was the centerpiece of that movie, Born on the 4th of July. So they won the Ron Kovac Peace Award. And then the movie, the same video went around the world through Adobe Youth Voices film festivals. So those students were making an impact all over the world and then being recognized for it. And it was just a simple thing to do, something that the kids came up with themselves, which is always like the best way. So within Iron now, what they've just recently done is they've taken all their projects, and there's probably over 100 or so active projects on the go right now, and they've linked them to the Sustainable Development Goals. So Colin's put the link into the chat box, and what you can do is you can just click on it, and you'll see it will take you to the page within Iron where they're talking about the Sustainable Development Goals. And if you scroll down a little bit, you can click on any of the Sustainable Development Goals, and what it will do is it will then take you to a project and to give you a little description of that project, and then we'll talk in just a minute about how you can join Iron, and if you found one of those projects that you'd like to be a part of, how you would join and get going on it. So maybe just take a minute or two, and you can have a look at how that works there, and then we'll like I said, we'll look at how you can join Iron if you've found something in there that you might find intriguing. Like I said, we're just really it's just the tip of the iceberg, looking at some of the looking at 2 or 3 of the projects tonight. But hopefully you can get the sense that there there's something there for everyone, whether you're primary, junior, intermediate, secondary. And often what we find when we're working in these projects like the Machinto project, Machinto is probably one that we haven't done below grade 4. But you end up having students in grade 4 and grade 11 actually working together. So that's always really cool. And they love it. So I'm just going to flip ahead to the next slide because we just got so much stuff that we're going to try and get through here tonight. So what we just looked at there was how IRON has linked the different projects to the Sustainable Development Goals. But they also have a project book that Colin's just put up in there where you can look at the projects based on, they've divided them up into different curriculum areas. So there's social studies, language projects, math projects, and they're organized in that fashion. And that's just a PDF that you can download, and again, each one has a little description of what the project's about, that sort of thing. So that's something that you might want to have a look at later. What we're just going to do quickly, though, is we're just going to have a testimony from one of the students that was involved in the Machinto project, so you can see like the power of these. Rather than me talking about it, I think what Michelle says in this little clip, and we are indeed going to show the short one here, Colin. What she says in this little clip, it just sums it all up.
All right, I'm going to try it. Oh, and this time I'm going to get it to work. So I'm going to play the video for you in the main browser window. It's only 1:08. If that doesn't work for you, as I don't think it will work on a tablet, I will also put it in the chat room. But here we're going to start by playing it in the main one, and then I'll put it in the chat room. So again, when you're done, just give us a green check mark so we know that you're finished the video. Okay, I'm seeing a lot of green check marks coming back there, Jim.
Yeah, sorry mine started to play again. 1 sec. I'm just trying to get back to the...
Oh, I was just going to do that.
There we go.
Now we're done. Yeah.
Okay,
yeah.
perfect.
I was going to say, I'll bring you back now. We're here. Okay.
Perfect. Yeah, so I mean, to me, Michelle in that little clip says it perfectly. It actually gets me every time when I listen to her, because to me, I mean, when you think of like character education, to me that just takes it to a whole new level. In the past, maybe it would be, caring month, and I'd be like, okay, get out your crayons and let's draw a picture of caring, and then, oop, check, we've done caring this month, and on we go. But here, and when you get students involved in these projects, you can hear Michelle, you're helping, you're changing who they are. They're not just drawing the pictures of caring, but they're becoming caring, compassionate, global citizens. And to me, it's just just about. I mean, we've had students to say to us, you know, we don't do this stuff for a mark. They do it because they believe in what they're doing. Oh, and Mally, just a quick update. Donnie's late, so I guess we can keep carrying on, but Donnie's late. So to join IRON, Colin's put the link in the chat box, and if at any time you can just go to IARN.org, and the join little button will be there. Now, IRON is it's a nonprofit organization, but normally for an individual teacher, there's a $25 per year charge in Canada. Each country has different fees that they charge, and that just covers sort of the cost that we have to put towards being a part of the network. And the money then goes to help students in developing countries around the world become a part of these projects. That particular video that we just saw, when you watch the whole thing, what I love is sometimes we'll get teachers, and I've heard every excuse in the book why we can't do this because we don't have enough technology in our classrooms, et cetera, et cetera. What I love at the beginning of that video, there's a little video clip of the kids in Burkina Faso, Western Africa, jumping off the back of a dilapidated pickup truck. So because to go to a cyber cafe where they're going to hang a sheet on the wall to be part of a web conference with our kids, because they have no technology in their school, but they will do anything to be a part of it. But for you tonight, and for however long you need before you join, when you join, you'll see you put in all your information, and then there's a box for additional comments. If you just put in OTF Connects, then there won't be any charge at all. And if you have any problems signing up, we'll have our contact information at the end. It's a great network. It really, literally changed my teaching. So I hope that you'll take the opportunity to join. And like I said, that was just the tip of the iceberg. If you start to look at it and think, okay, it's just overwhelming, I'm not sure where to start, like I said, we'll have our contact information at the end. And I find really all of this work is about all of us collectively connecting with one another and working together. To me, it's not about the technology. I mean, we use technology, but it's about relationships and connecting with one another. And so if you contact us at the end or anytime, we'll help you get started and say, you know, I'm teaching this grade and we're looking at doing this sort of a thing. We'll hopefully be able to direct you into a project that might work for you. So the next organization that we're going to look at is TakingITGlobal. And so now that Mally is retired, she's actually working part-time for TakingITGlobal, so she'll be your expert there as well. And because again, there is so much, we're just going to have just a quick look at it this evening. There is so much within TakingITGlobal. It could take you, we could do OTF Connect sessions from now until the end of the year each night, and we would still just be barely covering half the things that they do. Essentially what TakingITGlobal is, it's a youth-oriented social network for social good. So students can join the network on their own if they're, I think, 13 and above. If they're joining on their own, this would be, again, more sort of an intermediate, secondary type of thing. If you're teaching primary or junior, then there are places within TakingITGlobal where you can enroll as a class rather than as individual students. But either way, there are just like a ton of great resources in here for either students themselves or as educators. So when I say students themselves, a lot of students will join TakingITGlobal and just go off on their own and you know, develop their own action plan, and they connect with one another and do their own thing, and away they go. Obviously tonight we'll be talking more about how we can help facilitate that within the classroom and allow students to do that sort of thing. So within TakingITGlobal, like I said, there's just a ton of great resources. You can follow. They have international days. They've just got a whole list of days that are coming up, whether it's going to be, and whether it's Black History Month or whatever, any of those type of things that are coming up, they've got it listed in there, and then they'll connect you to resources that will help you to get started on them. So here's just an example, World Refugee Day coming up. It'll give a little description of what that day is all about, and then over on the right-hand side you can see they'll give you some ideas, you and your students some ideas on how you might want to take action on that particular issue. They've also got a whole host of games within their site now. So maybe once Colin puts that link in there, you can just take a second or two, or maybe a minute or two, and just look at some of the games that they have there, because we all know that our students love to play games. So this is a way to sort of tap into that love that they have for gaming, but now it's gaming with a purpose. So maybe just take a couple of minutes to look at those, just to give you an idea, hopefully, of some of the things that you might want to look at in more depth later. Like I said, there's so much stuff in this site. And I started out with just a couple of games, but even when we were putting this together and looking at it, it's like, wow, they're just coming up with new games all the time. And again, depending on the age level of your students, that might be an action. Depending, they might be find their passion, investigate it, and the way that they might want to communicate and take action is to create a game and find ways to share that with others. So tons and tons of, oh, I can see Karen, she's seeing the slides but not hearing any sound. I can see my talk button still moving, so can you still hear me, Colin?
Yeah, no, I've got sound, Jim. Karen is on an iPad. I just wonder. Okay, I'll chat with her in the chat.
I'll keep going. As long as I'm not just talking.
Yeah, no,
here.
I would have stopped you long before this, buddy.
Okay, thanks. Okay, so tons of games in there. You can have a look at those later. What I also love is they've got a whole education section where they've divided things up into different issues. And so, let's see, I'm not sure if Colin's if he's helping out there, if he's gonna be able to get this into the chat. So I'll try and get it in there, because you'll see when you look at, one second.
Got it.
Oh, you got it? Thank you. Okay, thanks, Colin. So you'll see if you click on that link, you'll see what they've done is they've taken a variety of different issues. So you can look at, you can find, just click on any one of those issues that you might be interested in for now. And then you can see what they do is they've just got a whole whack of different resources that will help you to get started on those particular issues, whether it's culture, education. Let's say you're interested in the environment, you would click on that. They've got some videos to get you started, resources. You'll see for each one over on the right-hand side, there's an area that says Commit to Act. That's an app that you can download for free. And then basically, students around the world are then committing to taking certain actions that are going to help in whatever particular issue they're trying to make a difference in. It's just a great springboard to help you get started in any of those particular issues. And then what they also have, and I've just flipped back to the presentation if you're still looking at that, feel free to keep looking at it if you want, multitask away. They've got an unbelievable global gallery where, again, students from all around the world are uploading images and video. A lot of the stuff in Taking It Global is geared more towards intermediate and secondary. But I have my kids, even though they're SK, regularly uploading, like we just uploaded a video the other day of sharing maple syrup with the world, where we taught kids in Taiwan how to make maple syrup. And then we just used Adobe Voice. If you haven't used that, great app. Super simple. Kindergarten kids, you can use it. They make the first half of the video about how to make maple syrup. then the kids in Taiwan made pancakes, put maple syrup on it, and we got to see their response, and the whole idea was we were sharing with them because we all belong to the same world. So we upload all that to the global gallery. I find you just want to find as many different ways to share their work as you can, and this is just one of them. What Taking It Global has that's just awesome is this guide to action, and oops. And so that was within the issues pages that we just looked at, where they have their, oops, one second, I'm just losing my place over here. They've got their guide to action. Sorry, just give me 1 second. So I can catch up with myself. They've got this great guide to action that will help you and your students. Again, there's so many different issues out there, so many different projects you can join. It's more the process that you want to go through that's going to be important. So the guide to action will take you through more that sort of fourth step that we were looking at in the quadrants in the beginning of, okay, how are we going to do this part where we haven't traditionally done in classrooms? How are we going to effectively mobilize our students in order to take action? So it takes you through a process where the students reflect and get inspired. They become become informed on the issue that they become passionate about, how to lead others and get involved, more deeply involved in what they're trying to do, how to get connected to others, how to plan and take action, and finally, how to have a lasting impact so that it's not something that maybe they're just doing, get the mark, move on, and do something else. So that's just a great sort of tool that's going to take you through that process, like I said. So Taking It Global, it's amazing. That's just like the whirlwind tour of it. Like I said, at the end, if you decide that you want to get involved in something there, you'll be able to contact us, and we can help you, direct you, and say, you know, if you're like, this is what we want to do, we can help direct you in the area that you might want to go. The third organization that we're going to look at is the Center for Global Collaboration. And what I love about all these organizations, IRON, Taking It Global, Center for Global Collaboration, is like we all collaborate with each other. Because we're all just non-profits, we're all like educators who believe in this stuff. It's not about like trying to create an organization that's going to make money and we're competing against each other. So all of these projects will sort of overlap and work with one another. So the Center for Global Collaboration was started by this real cool teacher, Terry, in Alberta, who you're going to see in a few minutes. And he basically wanted to connect live with some different things that the United Nations was doing. So all he did is he created some letterhead, sent it off to the United Nations, said that he was the director of the Center for Global Collaboration, which was him. And they responded, and it just went from there. And then eventually his school board in Alberta freed him up to do this on a full-time basis, and you're going to see it's just amazing. The difference between it and IRON is he sets up live webcasts and video conferences where your students are going to be connecting to each other in those sessions, which again will happen in IRON projects and Taking It Global projects, but the centerpiece of all of his projects are these live connections. So what is Global Encounters? So Global Encounters is like, if you just click on the link to Encounters, tigweb.org, and even when you see TigWeb, he's part of, because Taking It Global gave him space within their environment to house all of this. And when you click on that link that Colin Thanks has put into the chat box, you'll see there's just a couple of sessions coming up for the remainder of the year. So when you click on the link, if you go to events, you'll see upcoming events. So you've got 2 events coming up for the rest of the year, one on reconciliation and one on climate change in our backyard. But if you click on past events, you'll see these are the other events that have gone throughout the year, and again, they touch on
a whole host of different things, a lot which connect to things that people were said that they were passionate about at the very beginning of all this. And when you join the Center for Global Collaboration, you'll get monthly updates reminding you of, yeah, this is what's coming up. You get a yearly calendar. This is what's going to come up over the next 6 months, and then you get monthly reminders of what's coming up. You join it, and away you go. So even though they focus on the live connection itself, there's obviously a ton of work that has to go into preparing your students so that they're going to be able to engage in those live sessions in meaningful ways. So rather than me talking too much about it, we'll just let Terry talk about it here. So when Colin puts up the link or the web tour here, this is Terry Goldwald. Again, I think one of my teaching heroes who just decided, hey, I'm just going to do this, make some letterhead, tell the United Nations that I'm the director of this organization, and then built it up from here. And now he has, on a weekly basis, hundreds and hundreds, hundreds of students at a time, thousands and thousands of students throughout the year, connecting with one another on all sorts of projects. The one that he's going to be connecting to here. Sorry,
yeah, no, I was just going to say when you're finished, I'm ready to go here.
Okay, the one that he's connecting to here, hundreds of students around the world are all connected together, along with the United Nations Climate Change Conference in Copenhagen 2015. Thanks, Colin. Take it away.
Okay, yeah, so same as last time, I've got it working. It'll start to play in the middle one. And you want us to watch this whole thing? It's about 5 minutes, Jim? I'm going to take that as a yes then. So it'll start playing in the middle one. If it doesn't, or if you're on a tablet, I will also put the link into the chat. And here we go.
Sorry, yes, Colin.
Okay, great. So here we are. So just give us a green check mark when it's all done in about 5 minutes or so.
On December 16th, we hosted a video conference called Live from Copenhagen, and basically we brought together 14
Okay, I see some check marks coming up. If you finished it, just give us a green check mark. I think probably we're okay in just a second to get started again. And I'll flip it back to the whiteboard. All right. I think we'll pop it back to the whiteboard, Jim, and you can keep on going.
That's great. Thanks, Colin. And that was good timing to get frozen and kicked out during the video.
Yeah, absolutely. Don't do that again.
No. I was like, uh-oh. But at least I had a couple of minutes to get back in. So I think, Terry says it perfectly. There's nothing more to say about that. So, but what I will show you is that they have, you can see here, this is just the quick description that will come out each month, highlighting the project, giving you a session description, the target audience, that sort of thing. The other cool thing is within TakingITGlobal, Terry, the Center for Global Collaboration, has its own space where they have virtual classrooms that are built. So your students, if you're working on a particular issue, let's say you're working on climate change in the Arctic or whatever, which we're going to look at here really quickly in a second, There'll be a virtual classroom where the students can communicate, collaborate, share, and work towards that sort of video conference that they're going to be a part of. And so those spaces are built right in. This is just one of the other projects that Terry looks at each year is child soldiers. And I guess the reason why we want to put this one in is, again, just to show how all of these organizations work together. So this is CEDABA, who then does the web conference on child soldiers. And CEDABA, we actually met when he was, I think maybe 6 or 7 years old, through IRON, and a project that we were involved in IRON. Long story short, our school helped to support him because he was a former child soldier, had no family. We helped him raise funds so that he could get through school. Really long story short, he is now in university in California, just finishing up his last year, and now he wants to go on to law school to become an international lawyer, to make sure that what happened to him never happens to anyone else. It's like incredible, and you can imagine like our students who were involved in making that happen and have seen, like our students that were initially involved in that project, they never left it. They've always become a part of it. So they're still connected to CEDABA. There are still some of them that go out and create fashion shows and things like that because they want to help out. The kind of thing that just never happened when I was just teaching, you know, here's a research assignment, do the research, send it back to me, and here's your mark, and away we go. These projects just take on a life of their own. So you can see over 1,000 students were connected in that particular video conference. There's CEDABA just talking about it. Another great one that he did, and this is a great example where this particular video conference, so they connect live with scientists up in Canada's Arctic, as scientists that are studying the effect of global warming on the Arctic. Even though the content was a little bit above my students' heads, we still connected because my kids just want to see the polar bears. And so you're sitting there watching it. We just muted it because the talk was a little bit above their heads. We see the polar bears. We still got to pop in and send through Twitter, send them a couple of questions. They responded to our questions. Of course, my kids are like, you know, how big is that polar bear buggy? You know, they're interested in that. They're just interested in that sort of stuff. But what amazed me is throughout the rest of the year, all my kids, every day, we have to turn out the lights to save the polar bears. So whatever was happening there, it was making a connection with them. So you can see here, this is Mike from TakingITGlobal up in the Arctic in the tundra buggy. Here talking about, this was Mally's class tweeting about how they can make it affect climate change with what they eat. Just again, what's so cool is that in this particular video conference, there's students all the way from kindergarten to grade 12, all working at it from their own perspective, their own talents, their own way to make a difference in climate change. So then what ends up happening, and like I said, you never know how it's going to go. This is a video that Mally's students made last year, and what I love is this video just sort of highlights that whole idea of integration. One of the students in her school, or one of the teachers in her school, loves to create music. He was teaching music to Mally's students. Mally was able to then get through this. You'll see in this little video there, you know, you're able to cover like music, science, language. I think it just speaks for itself. Again, it was something that collectively her class decided that they wanted to do after being a part of the Polar Bear web conference. So take it away, Colin.
All right, so for already, same deal. I got to play it in the middle, but I will also put it in the chat for those who need it in the chat. So here you go. This one's about 3 minutes and 43 seconds, so we'll see you at the end of this one. All right, seeing more check marks coming in all the time. Our iPads are coming back. Just give it another second, Jim, and then I'll throw it back to the whiteboard for you. Okay, let's try that then. We'll head back now.
Thanks, Colin. Okay, so we've looked at, again, just touched on three what I think are really great organizations: IRON, TakingITGlobal, the Center for Global Collaboration, but obviously there is lots of stuff out there. So I'm sure we've all heard of Free the Children. It's another great organization, all sorts of great resources that they have on education, clean water, sanitation, health, agriculture, food security, alternative incomes, livelihood, and their particular action is usually focused around fundraising, whereas some of the other projects that we're talking about tonight, not necessarily fundraising. Free the Children's action would be more that fundraising part. If you haven't been part of the Me to We Day, I can't think of any event that we've been to that inspires kids to want to make a difference in the world any more than that. It's almost like it's not a religious event at all, but it's that sort of feeling of, wow, we can really do this because you're all there together, and everyone's passionate about making a difference in the world. So another great organization. And to me, they don't always have to be what you would normally think of as being organizations that are devoted to social good. So, for example, just last week, one of the librarians in our school board, I saw it come across the chat or whatever. They had joined the Social Entrepreneur Project, where they had connected with the Learning Partnership that Colin's just put in there, their entrepreneurial adventure. And so the entrepreneurial adventure connects your students with a real-world entrepreneur. In this case, they were connected with one of the Dairy Queens in Barrie. Then the students had to come up with a new Blizzard or one of their drinks. So let's say it was a Blizzard. They had to come up with a new drink, Blizzard, a new flavor, and then they had to market it. And then, so they had to come up with commercials. So they made videos, commercials, print ads, posters, all that sort of stuff. And then they have to keep track of it all. They have to be able to, create spreadsheets and those sorts of things that are going to keep track of the money that they've been raising. And they've already far exceeded their goal. And then the way that they connected this to a social justice issue is that the money that they're raising, they are donating to the David Busby Center in Barrie, which is a center in downtown Barrie that helps the disadvantaged within Barrie. So as part of that, the David Busby Center then comes out and brings their little mobile unit out to the school, talks to the kids so that they can see where their money is going to be going to, and that sort of thing. So what's cool about it is it doesn't have to be one of these sort of organizations that's necessarily, like Free the Children or TakingITGlobal or whatever, where their sort of mandate is looking at social justice issues. There are lots of different ways that you can approach it. I don't think there is any real right or wrong way. To me, it's about the main thing is you just want to connect your kids and get them out beyond those four walls of their classroom and connect with other teachers and other businesses and other people in order to create these projects and bring them to life. So maybe we'll just take a couple of minutes if there's any where people might want to list any other projects that they've been involved in, that you're aware of, that you might want to try. You can just quickly list them or copy and paste a link in here if you like, or put it straight into the chat box. Connecting students to Uganda, that's awesome, Maria. So you can see, like, a lot of this stuff
we're probably going to have to just digest and then look at later on. But anything that you want to add in there, take just a couple of seconds that you can either add in there, or I'll just keep on chatting away and just add anything else that you want into the chat box as we go along. So what's the impact? I mean, to me, I think it's obvious. I mean, when we think of what Michelle said, when we listen to those students in Terry's video talking about it, to me, it's obvious. You just have to see what you could see it, smell it, taste it. You know that it's making a difference. But again, a lot of administrators love to see the statistics. So studies that independent studies that TakingITGlobal had done showed that 89% increased in cultural awareness, students naturally increased their volunteer activity. And this is after they've been involved in some sort of social justice project. 27% starting their own projects, which again we've definitely seen kids doing that. So it does make a difference. So here are some mentor texts, and these are basically picture books that ETFO has put a list of picture books that ETFO has put out. It's just sort of a good starting point if you're looking for some good picture books that will get you started in terms of what might help augment your program. Because like I think I said at the beginning, in order to do this, you're definitely going to have to integrate a bunch of different subjects, or you'll never ever be able to you'll never be able to cover it if you're trying to do things just one at a time. It's sort of real world and integrated, and like I said, I find myself, different people do it different ways. I find the thing that myself and my students are passionate about, and then we come up with an idea, and then we start the project, and then you never know where it's going to go. And so that can be scary for some teachers because you don't feel like you don't have that control over everything that's happening. But it always goes in a direction that's way better than if I had just planned it out lockstep from the beginning to the end. And it's made for me, both Mally and myself, we're at that, when we got involved in these types of projects probably 10 or 15 years ago now, we're at that 15-year part of our teaching career where I still liked teaching, but I probably wasn't as passionate about it as I was in the beginning. And, I think I was still a decent teacher going through the curriculum, but I just didn't have that same sense of passion. And once I got involved in these projects, my own creativity started to expand, and my passion was reignited. And it's like I said, a lot of these projects, once you get going on them, there is no ending. So that project I was talking about with Cedar Bay, the former child soldier, that's not the kind of thing that once you get going on it, you can say, okay, that's it, we're done now, and we'll carry on. What's going to be next? Your own students will make sure that you're not able to do that because it is so real. So that sort of just brings us right back to the beginning with Jennifer, and I think to me, certainly in my experience, and I think anybody here who's been involved in projects like this, the experience is that our students can change the world. They're going to be the ones that are going to be, fixing the mess that we've left it in, and I think it's hopeful. I think it's really hopeful. And I think there is a sense, I think, in education, again, maybe 10 years ago when we were doing this kind of stuff, you were sort of unique and an outlier, and, your principal's looking at you a little bit weird. But now it's kind of shifting where I think this is starting to become more normal and looked at as the kind of thing that we want our students involved in, and it's the kind of thing that's going to lead them into being good 21st century global citizens. So like I said, there's just a ton of stuff that's out there. So if there's anything that you want help with, if all you have to do is just email us and just say, you know what, I'm teaching grade 7, we're interested in climate change, where do you think we should start? And Mally and I can get you started. So, like I said, we're both the co-directors of IRON Canada. Like each country within Canada, or each country around the world has a coordinator that sort of coordinates the efforts within their country and helps people get connected to others around the world. And now Mally's also working with TakingITGlobal. So in particular, if you had any questions about TakingITGlobal, she'd be the one that would get you off in the right direction there. So I hope you found it useful. I know that, like I said, that there's a lot of stuff there, and we just barely even touched in what's available within each one of those organizations. It's one of those things where it's like Colin was saying, it's really cool to see this many teachers coming out this time of the year. So hopefully it's something over the summer you can look at and digest and think about what you might want to do for next year. And then feel free to get a hold of us, and we'll help you to get started. And if you have any questions either now or at any time, just fire away.
Yeah, I just put that in the chat if anybody had any questions.
Sure.
It looks like you're inspiring people, which is really cool. What do you say? I mean, one of the things I think everybody here is going to agree that it's amazing, and we sort of all get why it's important and how it can energize. What do you say to teachers who look at you and go, "Oh my God, I just don't have the time"? Because I'm sure you get that sort of said to you at some points. What's your sort of standard response for that kind of time question?
Right. So, and definitely that's one of the ones that we get. And it's all about integrating your stuff and making sure that you're not just focusing on one, because all these projects aren't going to just focus on one area of the curriculum. And we've been very fortunate in our school board where, again, that last PA day where we watched Most Likely to Succeed, one of our superintendents said to us all, flat out, don't worry so much about covering the entire curriculum. We want you doing this kind of stuff. And look at the big ideas, look at the overall expectations, try and cover those, the rest of the stuff, worry about this. So that's one thing. And then the other part, I find there's lots of people who want to do this, so we work with those people. And then like even within our own school, there's a couple of people who'd be like, no way, you know what I mean? And so you just let them do their own thing, and I don't even bother trying to convince them that it's
fair enough.
That it's good, you know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, I think you're exactly right. People have to come to what they're passionate about on their own, and what's your passion is not someone else's. But I think the overarching thing is to find out what you're passionate about and bring that to the classroom, because that does get through to the kids too, no matter what it is, right? Right,
exactly.
Cool. Alrighty. Well, thanks very much, Jim. If there's any other questions, I see a lot of this is fabulous, amazing, inspiring. That's really there's just great feedback, obviously, in the chat. So I'm gonna say thanks. I'm gonna go over to my little emoticon thing and give a little applause for Jim, because that was really cool. A whirlwind tour of lots of great resources and things there. So thanks once again, Jim. So for everybody else, just as we wrap up here tonight, I put a link. This is a clickable link on the whiteboard here. I will also stick it in the, as I'm talking, I should have got this up earlier. Of course, I did not. I'll put it in the chat box here. But this is the link for the feedback form. And actually what happens when you log out of Blackboard Collaborate this evening, you'll get a pop-up in a browser window, and this will be a feedback form for you to complete. We do ask that you spend a few minutes and do that. The feedback does go back to Jim, and it also goes back to OTF, and that really helps in future planning as we look towards planning for next year and all of the things that we're going to do, because these sessions will continue. So if you're new, like I said, welcome, but we'd love to see you back either for one more this year or for next year as we continue on putting more things together for you. So like I said, the survey link is there. Once you've completed the survey, you'll get an option to fill out another form to be able to print a certificate of completion to say you attended this session, to stick in a professional portfolio or whatever you wish to do with it. So, and that's only available for 48 hours, so you have to do the feedback within the 48 hours to access that certificate. Just real quick, we're winding down for the year, but we do have a few more sessions coming up in the next couple of weeks before we wind up for the year, and then there'll be more stuff coming up obviously next year. Speaking of stuff that's upcoming, some people may be considering taking AQs or ABQs over the summer, and OTF does have some funding available from the ministry to help subsidize some AQ courses. So if you're thinking about doing, especially in math this year is where they're putting their funding, if you're thinking about doing some math AQ, there's information on the OTF website about how to get some money to subsidize your course. And then the other thing is summer is of course coming, and OTF offers a bunch of different things over the summer. One is Summer Institutes, and that registration actually opened this week. You can get more information on the OTF website. And basically those are kind of small 2 to 3 day retreats sometimes they're from different subject associations or skill areas or literacy or math or whatever. So if you can go and look, if you're looking to do like a quick 2 or 3 day retreat over the summer, some of those may be for you. The other thing that's going on is at the end of August, they have a technology and pedagogy conference. So there's information on that, and that registration actually opens up tomorrow. So again, that is on the OTF website as well. And finally, something new starting for next year is this thing they're calling Teacher Learning Co-op, and it's kind of like a TLLP if you're familiar with those, but it's basically opportunities for some funding for some self-directed learning in small groups, professional groups. So like I said, that's just kind of some of the stuff that's upcoming in the summer, and we're getting ready for next year. So once again, thank everybody for joining us on this lovely May night as we get close to the end of the year. I want to thank Jim again on behalf of OTF and everybody for a wonderful session, and we look forward to seeing everybody here again.